I work as a nurse in the emergency department, and I see women that come in that have been victims of sex trafficking. I see women that are addicts. I'm watching people that I take care of not be able to have health care insurance to afford their medications. And by not paying for their medication, they're now sicker. And it's just this cycle.
In the emergency room, how much are you impacted by the opioid crisis?
Every day, multiple times a day. You hear about frequent flyers.
Frequent flyers, what is?
Frequent flyers being that they're usually into the hospital. Sometimes they're in for the nighttime because they're homeless and they don't have a place to sleep. Other times they're in because they've overdosed. They recover in the emergency department. They leave, they do it again, and they're back again the same day or the next day. And some of them truly you make a bond with, and you really feel like, wow, it's disheartening to see what the opioid epidemic is doing.
Do you think this is an issue that will drive people to the polls?
I think so. I hope so. I think there's probably a lot more people that are affected by the opioid crisis than people let on. Maybe it's because there's a stigma attached to it and you don't want to feel that you're any less of a person, or that there's some kind of negative look on you if you've been touched by it. But I personally have been touched by it. My coworkers have been touched by it. Friends and their family members have been touched by it. We see it every single day, that some other person has died as an overdose, some young person, and it just rocks their community. I don't know, there's no sense of peace there. I have that in front of me every single day at work.
And Dasha joins me now from Manchester, New Hampshire. Dasha, it is so good to see you. The nurse we just heard from is one of several people you've talked to on the ground there in New Hampshire. Do voters there feel like the Democratic candidates are adequately addressing issues they worry about, things like health care and the opioid epidemic?
Hey, Allison. Yeah, that's Erin Westling that you met there. And being an emergency room nurse, she's really seen all of it. She's also an independent voter here in New Hampshire, something the state is pretty famous for. And she's seen a lot of the candidates on the campaign trail. And she says that they really have been talking about this. They've been talking about health care. They've been talking about the opioid crisis. And she's pretty happy with how much attention they've given to the subject. But it is interesting because the Democrats are pretty divided on the health care issue. And another voter we met, a woman named Erin, who is a teacher. She works 2 jobs. She said healthcare is actually what made her switch her support from Warren to Pete Buttigieg. She just couldn't get on board with the Medicare for All platform. She says she really likes her private insurance, but her daughter, who's struggling with getting healthcare coverage, she would really like her to have that public option. So she really prefers Pete Buttigieg Medicare for All Who Want It platform. So definitely something everyone wants to hear these candidates talk about. It seems like they're doing a pretty good job, but it's interesting to see these divisions within the party and how they're impacting voters here, especially that critical independent voter bloc.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about that critical independent bloc. You've been talking to a lot of right-leaning independent voters. How likely are they to vote for a Democrat tomorrow?
Allison, this is what makes New Hampshire so interesting. Look, about 42% of New Hampshire's registered voters are undeclared. But experts say really about a third of those voters generally tend to mostly vote Democrat, and about a third of them generally tend to mostly vote Republican. Well, we've met several of those right-leaning independent voters, and the ones we've met are planning to vote in the Democratic primary tomorrow. And, one woman we talked to, Brenda, she said it was a hard choice for her to make because she does see that the economy is doing well. She sees small businesses in her community are succeeding, but the problem she has is really with the tone. And as much as people have brought up issues like healthcare and affordable housing and jobs, that seems to be the most repeated topic I'm hearing is the tone, the respect, the civility that voters feel like is missing from the conversation right now, and it is pushing some of these voters that are independent but traditionally have voted Republican over to the Democratic side, and it's interesting to see them struggle with having to cast that Democratic ballot tomorrow.
All right, so the next inevitable question is, if they're going to vote for Democrats tomorrow, who are they interested in?
We've heard a few different names. The ones that come up most often, probably number one is Pete Buttigieg, followed by Klobuchar, especially after Friday. People are really taking a second hard look at her. And then Tulsi Gabbard. We've heard a lot of that too. Really what I'm hearing from these voters is they want someone who can unify. They want someone who can speak to voters across the aisle. Even the Buttigieg supporters that are certainly going to vote for him, part of the reason that they support him is because they think that their friends who are Republicans, who are moderate, who are not comfortable with Trump, aren't convinced yet either way, might actually cross over for somebody like Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Actually, one of the voters we talked to talked about a Facebook group called Republicans for Pete, and she says she's seeing a lot of conversation there, and she thinks this could be a more significant phenomenon. The experts we've talked to say it's just not clear yet how big of a group this is. Might be a little bit similar to the silent Trump voter in 2016. There could be some silent Republicans who are planning to vote Democrat but just aren't ready to talk about it super openly yet. So we'll see how that all plays out tomorrow, Allison.
Oh, it's so interesting, Dasha, and it's what makes tomorrow's primary so exciting. Thanks so much.
Could be some surprises.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.